Hello. So I think that we have waited until now, so I think we should start now. Thanks for the people that were waiting until now. If Jordan and I agree, I would kick off the meeting now. George and I, you agree?
Yes. Started. Yes. We can get.
I think that we have waited until. To be and winner. I'm coffee in the today with the Papasino refer at Endeavor, and we have Mahfouz, Chief Officer of Studies, and webinar on behalf of the Peninsula. The week of the less jobs seen the implementation of youth, particularly the online was the first three phases of the implementation, in particular preparation, launch, and selection. Today the winner will be commenting you have seen on the platform. In particular, are the learning objectives for today. We are going to have more section of the session address a revision of content that we have seen until now. In particular, we are going to go back still to the difference between full and partial replication to make sure that everyone is clear about this particular concept. We are going to have a review of the preparation, launch, selection phase, and all the micro steps that are involved in these main phases. And finally, we're going to address the remaining steps of the implementation phase with a particular focus on application and scalability. As a last point, we are going to also see where we can find useful information on the Youth Toolkit website that is available, apart from the course platform where you are all following the online course. So, to start with the revision of that we have covered so far, I will hand over to George, and George will start addressing you with some questions.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Today's session is going to build up on what we did last week, and probably continue with the same deliberations on full and partial replication. Probably from your own point of view, are we all clear in terms of what this full and partial replication means? Members, as it is on the slide, some of the issues. Do you want to help or start, a viable business? And the issue, if you know, then you stop there. If it is yes, then you continue. How do you want your organization to support young entrepreneurs? Is it other organizations? Or exactly, you can say if it's via other organizations, then it takes a full replication. If it's directly, it takes a partial replication. But I remember last week, some of you even already made choices in terms of whether they would do partial or full replication. Now, in this case, as we've said, this is just to give support and a clear understanding of these. Maybe next slide. Hello? Yeah, we've already made a decision somehow. How what it means, to have a full replication or a partial replication with regards to all that we did last week. Maybe I get some responses. Any suggestions?
Yeah, to answer to Georgia, please switch on your microphone. Alfred, do you want to say something?
Obviously, the preparation really, this is where you lay out exactly the project in terms of what you want to do and how you want to do, and you outline who you are dating, and maybe you develop all the necessary promotional or profiling tools for the project that you think will help you to that you use for the next phase, the launching phase. Then this is also within the preparation. This is where you engage all the relevant stakeholders, will be they government or other sector players that you think will be key for the implementation of the Youth to Youth Fund. So you are also making sure that they are aware of what you want to do, and probably they will be available in terms of the launch that you launch event, which is the next phase. So I think the preparation really is a very important step, as it will sort of lay the ground for all the subsequent phases in terms of making sure that you have the right stakeholders, you have the right information for the project. Also, you have the right or resources that are necessary for the implementation of the Youth to Youth Fund. Without taking space for the other colleagues, probably I'll end on the preparation stage for now.
Thank you. Different view?
Jane, that she would like to add something.
Okay.
Yes, according to module 3 that I found that I think preparation also includes bring project team and hire people who are not yet there, and also preparing all the documents that could be needed for the launch.
Thanks. I think you're also going to do partial, because like the discussion is taking a full, replication. If you're doing a partial replication, what would it mean to you? Would you say?
Working closely with young entrepreneurs, also with some project team, either administrative or IT. This is how I understand. Maybe I'm wrong.
In a person?
Okay, in a way, there is only a slight because you're doing it directly. Obviously, you might not expect to have the intermediary ideas being your priority focus, but I would say largely you still need the other stakeholders to be involved. Obviously, the same communication tools or profiling tools that you would have used when it was a full replication, some of them are also relevant even for the partial replication. So I think it's more the intermediary part. We might not probably have that representation of focus, so because you are doing it directly, but I think the stakeholders are still relevant, and even the tools are still relevant.
We all agree that whether you're doing full or partial, the preparation will be important. Now, when it comes to the launch, what are we looking at here?
I think thinking about launch. Hello, this is Joseph talking.
Yeah, Joseph.
Launch. Basically, you want to look at sending out the word to create demand for the initiative, or for the youth or whatever in the context. So you want to pick out send out the message, and also you want to help that's kind of, I would summarize it that way.
Another addition? Thank you, Joseph. DOS.
I do. I mean,
can you say something?
so I'm late to join, so that's why I left. I decided to leave others continue. But for me, I think during the launch, especially if you are talking about PIO, which means you are just that guy whom we use to, let me say, it's promise, and then I'm dealing with the beneficiary, the last target beneficiary with the middleman. So it might be two levels. What's the scale? If it's regional level, during the launch, of course, you might consider organizing even a bonanza.
Mm-hmm.
Like a bonanza, whereby like these guys, your target beneficiaries will be joining in. You might even consider inviting like these local government authorities as well to take a part in it, and as well the media. So I think here it depends who you whether you want to do it, if it's at regional level or maybe national level. And then if actually at my level, at regional level, for me, I would do like maybe simply organize a bonanza, invite the media, invite the local as well, and then share actually what's the aim of the program, what is where you are heading. So it might be, again, I am okay, I'm late to contribute to
Don't you're doing fine. You're doing fine.
Yes. I'm even wondering, during the launch, have I already selected the target beneficiaries, or in the launch? No, the selection is before. Actually, it's after the launch. So if it's after the launch, and for me, I would use the launch as an occasion, like to invite these groups also to kind of come up with ideas. So we meet in what is it in this case, in a project in Tanzania, I think that's launched it, and it's different now.
Okay, why would you launch, and what are some of the things that you expect from a launch? If you go back, I think in last week's session, we were talking about creating awareness and getting as many people as possible, to be aware of the project, because at this point also other activities take place. You want these people to put the applications, the expression of interest. I think it's part of all that it's all embedded in that launch process. Now, after you want to the next selection, the next level. What activities that we discussed last time that are really important for you to ensure that you have a good people selected?
Yeah.
Jen.
Okay.
Jen. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I can see you.
Okay.
Alfred?
Saying during the selection, obviously now responding to the response of the way you have to start the selection, the screening of the missions that would have been made by interested applicants. Then you obviously the assumption here is as part of your preparation, you've already developed your scoring and ranking benchmarks, so that you can then start using those as part of your selection of the applicants. And I think there was also an issue around, you coming up with like a cutoff mechanism, cutoff criteria to say, okay, whoever achieves this level of score based on your ranking and scoring are the ones that probably will go to the next stage. And I think there was also an important emphasis around feedback. This is feedback whether to those that have been successful or those that have not been successful. That needs to be provided, which I believe also is also good, because there could be some who might not have made it but might want to try in the next round. So that feedback process really helps them to prepare for the next round. I mean, it's a learning process, I believe. So I think that phase, I also found it quite an important part of the selection process.
Okay, we are all in agreement that initial stages, it's very important for us to get the right people, the right projects, because then that will determine what happens, in future. So let's do the next slide, Alexia. Go back. It's like you said, it's just a recap. I think you have all, talked about the same things: the preparation, we've talked, and the session. You may said we are building for the next, stage, which is implementation. But to have a rundown of what needs to be done. With preparation, you are looking at a team. If you have it, you don't have to hire. What we do is to train, so then you have a team that is really competent. And then, of course, identify and engage, your partners. Creation of the application pack, because when you are going to launch on the basis of some information pack that you have prepared, that you're going to share with the targeted, beneficiaries. With different strategies of reaching out, to as many people as possible. Part of the launch, that's what we're saying, design an outreach strategy. Whatever strategy that you design has to be all-inclusive as much as possible. Can you remember some of the C's or other areas that we felt like we could use so as to reach out to as many people as possible? Just one, two. Joseph?
I think we talked about like newspapers or things.
Addition? Are you?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm now calling names now that I know you. Some that we talked about last week that will ensure that we have a good outreach. I mean, it's talk papers. What else did you talk about? Any other? Video, internet, yes.
I would like to. I think you feel the local. Now the young people are also on the like Facebook and the social.
Yes.
Even WhatsApp.
That's very good. So once you have the outreach materials, then you launch the core proposals, and of course you continue with information sections. And leave and process round one applications. So the criteria last week, I gave you it's cast on stone. I don't know you all managed to go through it. Team, the criteria that I shared that used, for instance, for East Africa.
Share the resource George is talking about on the course platform. They are saying that they have not checked them, at least a day.
Okay. So you can find time and look through some of the items that we were looking for. And after that, then it's part of the selection process already, because then when your criteria, that means you want to sieve out, and get the best. So then, because the preparation for selection, stage 1 application selection, then 2 application selection. I remember we talked of both, is it a face-to-face interview and even 3 visits to verify, so that it's an elimination process. You many and finally end up with a few. And then you can see we have what you call a showcase event, but that's a bit later, because that means you have brought the people already there, and the projects are already ready to go. So an end there. It's a good revision, and we are all on the same page. So I will pass over the next colleague to continue. Any questions?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any question? There was a question in the chat from Joseph before. I don't know if it was addressed properly, or if you want to still provide some explanation. Joseph was asking if we can clearly distinguish partial and full replication. I think process can be the same. This is what Joseph was saying before.
I had not seen it. So yeah. You responded, so that is okay. We'll be willing to respond to it, because it's very important for us to really have a clear distinction. And some of the activities will be the same, yes, but at some point, people take different roles. If you are doing full, a different role at some point, and you're doing partial, then you also have a different role at some point. Any other questions before we continue? Yes.
The question, George, at the moment. So I think we can go ahead with Tendai.
Yes.
Present as the implementation phase, at least for what you have said until now.
Thank you.
Everyone, thanks, George, for laying the foundation for the next phase, the implementation phase, which is, I wouldn't say the most important phase, because if you don't get the previous phases right, then you're going to mess up implementation. But certainly it's the longest phase. Alicia, you click. Thank you. So typically, we're looking at least 18 months of implementation. This is what is ideal. We have in the past tried to do months of implementation, but one of the lessons clearly learned was that you want enough time to really see the businesses to grow, and especially those first 6 months. So what you would ideally hope is that by the time you reach month 12, they will have all the thing done, in buildings, whatever needs to be built are done, that they have the material, the equipment, that they've finished training and really starting businesses. So 12 months businesses should be set up, and then at least, and that's the longest. Some will be much quicker, some will be longer, but typically the cutoff should be by 12 months. Everyone should have had 3 or 4 months running their business as part of their practical learning experience. And then the last 6 months is just kind of ongoing monitoring of the projects and troubleshooting, and kind of getting them ready to go on their own without the support of your program. So the step in this 18-month phase is induction, and this is basically your kickoff. It'll be meetings with key people who will be involved in the implementation, making sure everyone is on track, everyone is clear on their roles. you will have had work plans and everything, but now at the kickoff, you bring those up to date. You make modifications and adjustments that are necessary. So this kickoff process is a really important point to gather the team and make sure everyone is on the same page going into this critical phase. And 12 months, this is really one of the things that sets apart the Youth to Youth Fund approach. We find it very important to provide the full package to young people. And what many programs that are helping young people in terms of entrepreneurship do is they give you part of the pieces. So some people give training, some people give microcredit. But what's important if you're implementing the fund, our hallmark piece is that we bring all those little pieces together and help youth to walk through all the processes at the same time. And so the training, there's 3 types of training that young people may need. Technical training, so whatever technical skills are required to run the business that they want. Business skills, of course, basic accounting, financial literacy, soft skills, and we had some very good experiences in all of the trainings to really try to think of how can we make training really make a difference. Because a lot of young people are being trained, but training doesn't have an impact because it's either at a level too high or too low for the needs of the beneficiaries. So using training tools that are very practical, very hands-on, to know that knowledge is really absorbed and able to be used by the beneficiaries, and that it's not just a class that people take and that actually get applied in real life. So training is an important step, and we encourage experiential learning techniques very strongly, particularly when you're working with disadvantaged youth. The next thing is getting them access to capital. Now, it doesn't mean that your fund must give them money or startup capital. Certainly, there should be a partner within your program who can provide that. So that because you don't provide it, what can happen is that young people will spend a long time trying to get the finance, not the idea. Maybe they'll get it in month 12, but by then you're almost on your way out. So make sure that if you're not providing capital and financing of some sort, then you have a partner who's on board who can do that at the right time. The practical experience, and this is really important. The way we do the fund, especially in West Africa, is that as people are learning skills, they are actually setting the business up in the process. So business, your entrepreneurship skills is not something you just learn in a class, it's something you're actually applying at that very moment. So enough time to have practical experience is important. We have a focus on guidance and mentoring. Often people are working ideas that are a little bit innovative, some different, not the standard type of business. So it's important to make sure that young people have enough support to implement these ideas. And of course, as an idea is implemented, there's always problems. There's always something going wrong in a business, and that's quite normal. But how do you solve these problems? That's going to make the difference. So people who have a good business background as project assistants is very important. One way we've done it for the Youth to Youth Fund is to have a project assistant in each region we're active who's responsible for a set of programs. That way you have someone at the local level who youth can go to when there's problems arising, when things aren't going well, and also just to bounce off ideas and strategies they have in mind. That's another important aspect. And the last thing is access to markets. This is something that is often missing. Very few programs provide access to markets. This means you have to think of, often we're focusing so much on the products or services that young people can provide, but also to who's going to buy them. How do we make sure that they're competitive? What is the right pricing? How can we make it more attractive? How can we don't the networks and resources and partnerships you need into, say, a supermarket? How can we make it easy for them to do that? And in Togo, we've had some success in getting products into supermarkets because the Youth Fund was able to kind of push the process and open the door a bit more easily for young people. So So that's kind of the full package, and it'll vary from project to project. It depends on the type of beneficiaries you're looking at. But these are things that young people should already have covered themselves, or you provide them, or a partner provides them. After the 12-month process, I'll go through this full package, a support package. Then we usually have some sort of a graduation, which kind of marks the end of their training, kind of the process where they're being closely watched by the program, and they're now kind of getting ready to go on their own way. But don't completely abandon them. As you see, the next step is coaching. So after the graduation, there is some ongoing light monitoring where we continue to just see that they're going well, and problems are arising. There's still somewhere they can go to for support. And typically, after the 18 months, that becomes a lot less. Another thing throughout the course, the next step is having enough peer learning meetings. So usually there's 4, we can more or less in different cases, but typically about 4 peer learning meetings where we bring together all of the, now this is, if you're full replication, you would be bringing together your grantees, and a partial replication, or your intermediaries or BDS providers, who are that person doing the work on behalf, you might bring them together. Or if you're doing a direct replication, it's a partial replication, then you would bring together the young entrepreneurs. And this is a really important thing, that young people get a chance to exchange and learn from one another. And there's been many fruitful discussions, and it's also, we've seen it's a nice way to motivate people, because as some beneficiary, some of our programs that we support as a project are doing really well. It inspires the others because they already met during selection interviews, and then you have these ongoing meetings. So they become a group that knows each other, and when they see others doing well, it can also encourage those who are struggling and lagging and having issues to really kind of pull themselves up and try to move things ahead. So it's a good mechanism also for people to each other. It's an open atmosphere. We try to create an open atmosphere where people feel comfortable to share challenges they're facing. So it's usually just the project assistants and the either the BDS provider or the young entrepreneurs themselves, and that allows for an intimate setting for people to really talk about what's going wrong and have not feel uncomfortable about discussing these kind of issues. A hallmark feature of the Youth to Youth Fund is the monthly site visits. So every month you have a project assistant visiting their portfolio of programs. And this could, I say programs because it might be, if it's full application, then they're visiting the grantee or the BDS provider, and if it's partial, then you're visiting the actual businesses. But monthly visits are important touch points where they look at how things are going. They'll look at the work plan or the business proposal and see where things are at. And usually each project assistant will give a traffic light rating, and then feed these reports back up to the national coordinator. And as we have these monthly calls where the national coordinator talks with the project assistant, we're looking at the portfolio, we're seeing what's going on, we're troubleshooting, and that's a really important thing to do at the beginning, because often the little things start to go badly. Just have your midterm and end-term evaluation. You miss a lot of time when you can actually move things and change before they get too bad off track. So the monthly visits are crucial for keeping things on track, and also for having people feel that someone actually cares. That's one of the things that many youth have said to us. They're like, oh wow, you actually care. You really come and see what we're doing with the money. And it makes them also feel a great sense of responsibility to ensuring that whatever resources and opportunities they're given, they really use them because someone will be watching what they're doing, and helping them when things go wrong. The second last thing is these evaluation visits. In addition to the monitoring, we have evaluation visits. It's kind of a a higher level look at what the big picture is, how are things really going. And this is often done internally first by the national coordinator who visits all the projects. And we also have an external evaluation, which is done in addition to back up our internal evaluations. And of course, I don't need to tell you how important both monitoring and evaluation are. And then there's one element which is really only relevant for full replication, but when we're doing the replication, you want to have some checks and balances for when you disperse funding to your BD providers. And so these are often linked to evaluation visits. When you've checked that they're doing well, everything's being done according to plan, then you can release the various funding disbursements. So that is the 18-month implementation phase in a nutshell. Any questions, anything unclear? Happy to answer those.
Yes, we do have 5 minutes to take some questions or comments from the participants, so please feel free to activate your microphone.
Thank you, Tentai. Regarding the time frame, is the 18 months the best or the worst case scenario? Well, I'm assuming probably depending on, well, you are working in a context where probably there's high illiteracy. Would say 18 months is the worst case it is factored in all those. So I'm going to ask, have you had any case where probably it's shorter than 18 months?
We've tried many times to do it in 12 months. Never managed to do it in 12 months. So we always end up getting an extension, which makes me think there's no point in even saying you can do it in at least 12 months. I would, if you really are providing this full package and everything involved, and working with illiterate youth, doing innovative things, then to plan for 18 months. Shorter than that is possible, but you will not get it all done properly. I mean, there's also other factors. It depends how big your team is. It depends what geographical space you're looking at. So we're always working at least in the country level, so you have multiple regions. Perhaps if you're looking at one specific region, you have a lot of people, a strong team in terms of numbers and capacity. You'd be able to shave off a few months, but yeah, unfortunately, I can't really say 12 months is to be enough.
No, also chip in there. Look at our own experience. For instance, in Kenya, we planned for 12 months. But it's not possible. So we ended up getting a 6-month extension. So I want to agree with Tendai that I think 18 months is quite a good a period that you can try and achieve something. And you will still require more than 18 months. Yep.
I was sort of pointing to say, well, is 8 months where you have all things working, but what if maybe you have a course where there is high illiteracy, and probably you have to be slower with certain components of the intervention, or maybe you might probably have to redo some of the training and end up having to go for more than 18 months. But okay, we could force to say 18 months probably. What is more realistic could be 24 months. I'm just trying to be of maybe some of the great work that is included, like access to markets. It takes a bit of time of facilitation, and it may take. Okay.
Yes. So now I understand your question more clearly. In a best case scenario, you would want to have about 24 months. If you have funding that allows for 24 months of implementation, then you can really kind of make sure you have time for revisions, problem rising, and enough time for people to really go through all the steps. So I would say 20 months would be ideal. questions?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
We can hear you.
Yes. For me, time what was talking about being a period, whether it's illiterate or literate society. I think we are having this project having too much that you want to experience and so forth. This thing of learning by doing, not we should give enough time. So for me, I think when I was looking at this, I went back in the stages that George was presenting. We are considering this that these guys who come who eat from the when they sit, then they come always to say yes, this is what is it somewhere for learning from learning from mistakes. They will that is not in the then we start thinking now if we allow this to learn by doing then and then that again and then maybe they might be and again pressure of him to achieve something in a very short time. I think sometimes we too poor. If we will to give ourselves enough, we are ready to move with you and ready to really support this somewhere. Always linked to market. I was thinking sector of market, to training, to finance, linked to market. Being able to do all this so that you can even do the coaching. I think it's a lot to be able to do in 12 months. So you find that by putting a pressure on ourselves, putting pressure on the beneficiaries, and then know that we could, have a longer period.
Yeah, I agree with you. It comes down to, sadly, it's a question of the funding cycles that donors provide. So we actually have had to try to do a lot of work in educating donors and telling them, explaining to them that if you want the full package, you can't do it in this much time. Because bear in mind, it's 18 months for implementation, but that doesn't take into consideration the time you still have to invest in preparation, selection. That itself is quite a long time. So donors don't want to really have go beyond 2 years. I feel except 3 years. So yeah, there's a lot to do, and also kind of helping donors to understand that if you want real lasting impact, then it just takes more time to get it.
The other thing that I would advise is that money is never enough and time is never enough. So somehow you have to put in some limit. But I also understand that you are really creating or rather building a strong foundation for the future of any interventions that will have been initiated. And I remember very well, some of the things that we invested in is leveraging on existing, say, opportunities, advocacy issues to try and support, the model and the enterprises that have been, started. It doesn't end there. So the time is related to funding, so perception, of course, again, depending on where you are, the environment where you are working in also matters a lot. So you give something in the 24 months, but other areas you may need a lot more. And if you have achieved, if you tell them you have money, opportunities and gaps will still be found. So I think it's a question of us now and the peer learning, the evaluation visits, to say, I think we have created a good foundation. These people can now go on their own. I think it's a journey that we have to as people who are supporting these programs. Thank you.
That links to the last point I'm going to make, that while the other thing is, I have seen some programs too long cycles, and sometimes you lose a certain momentum when they're too dragged out. So it is something about finding just right time frame where people do feel a certain pressure to move and advance things, because time is a precious resource, without people then feeling rushed. So, any comments before we question?
Hello?
Okay. Back to you.
Hello?
I think Joseph wants to say something.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
just maybe when you involve much stakeholders, like if you put in much stakeholders, you can show, given the context, whether the illiterate youth or the literate youth. So you look at it, you need maybe the providers who are more suited for that kind of setting. That you implement other things, you're cautious. I know that within the time frame of 18 months, you also have people helping you to deliver. So the time frame is subjective to when beneficiaries and how you plan about stakeholders and whatever you need to be involved in.
If I understand, having the right stakeholders and partners can help accelerate the speed of implementation. Joseph is saying that the connection was not so good.
That I'm just replying to someone who was talking about the lead for affecting of implementation, the implementation. That you need to bring on board diverse stakeholders who are going to be partners in implementing together. So it's not be one person doing it, but you should bring on board different people, kind of together blend. I think
And anything else that you want to add, or would you like to move on?
Let's.
Okay. Then, after this question and answer session, I will hand over the floor to George, that will talk about replication and scalability of the Youth Fund.
Thank you for the previous slide, the implementation, which very well. We are now going to replication and scale up, and maybe from the team members that we have understanding of the word replication or scale up. Jen,
Okay.
you're quiet, Jen. Alpha.
Okay, replication really is probably taking the same model to another context to do the same thing. Then when I'm talking scale, we're not talking about numbers, reaching out more intermediaries or more youth through the initiative.
I think I would say the same, that the question being to replicate what you did. We came from Kenya, example from Kenya and from West Africa. I think the way is to see if we can also implement it in our own context. But again, I think because this is scaling up, that if it was kind of a learning experience, then and now we know that it works, so we can really kind of again scale up. It's coming back, but I think we can reach more and more. I think the scope. I think I can call it the scope of the outreach. I think.
Okay. Now, thank you. Both of you are correct, and this is a step that comes after the implementation, and we would like to look at replication at different levels, at 3 levels: at the Y fund level, at the TEAS level, and of course at the young entrepreneurs level. So begin at the fund level, where with other organizations that are able to copy where the fund is all about in other areas and do a bit of some modifications, increase, then that would be one form of replication. And of increasing your outreach, of course, also scaling up at the same time. But then go on further to use specific examples, like we just said, Alfred. In West Africa, you implemented a certain project. Is in Tanzania, somebody is in Mozambique. Then what you have done, they're able to do it in a different way. That will be replication. So one country to that, the idea is moved and implemented in a different country, or rather in the same region, from one corner of the country to another corner of the country. That still would mean is a replication. A lot of in most cases, most of our projects, especially in Kenya, they're borrowing a lot from what was happening in Uganda and what's happening in in Tanzania. But I tell you, it means that the peer learning during the monitoring, there's a lot of documentation that needs to take place. At the end of the day, that has been implemented to a success has to be properly documented and properly packaged, so that the else can learn from it and others can probably borrow or rather replicate. And I think that was the case in a situation here, where when preparing the package for that, because then whether replicating or you're scaling up, there still have to be the processes of implementation. And in this case now, due to the preparation of those packages for launching, say, a replication phase, to package projects that have been done successfully in other areas, so that people can borrow the idea and think of what they can do locally in their own context. So the idea, the important points, the fundamentals, and then even do it differently. You will find that some project that was done in poultry, but doing replicating is it, but in a different, probably beeping, or so it depends on how it is packaged and the idea. So the difference. And now you have groups that have implemented a project, and they would want to scale up to increase the outreach, production. Then that wants to scaling up. In our case, so both fund level, you can have both the replication and scale up, and of the grantee level, that can also be applicable. I don't know if we're together up to that level. Men? Are we together? Are we together up to that level?
Oh, yeah. No, it's okay. That's okay.
So
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I think I need more clarification on level of guarantees. Yes, I understand all the entrepreneur, yes, but on the guarantee is that the guarantees are based youth-led organization which gets support from this. I mean the full application. In the full, what is it? Yes, full. Now, the guarantee, if I understand them as a business development providers, how do I? What is it that I thought that they are really tied to the fund? Yeah, what I really can learn. If a law, for instance, supported like PDS providers in Tanzania, what can I learn really from apart from the fund itself, the model that it is by?
Any other questions so that then we clarify, or is anybody ready to provide an answer to that? Those of us. Hello?
Maybe, George, you could help to summarize the question. I think.
The question from the audio asking if I supported 2 BDS providers in Tanzania, for instance, if you go to a country, or maybe clear.
It's the model that is being replicated to another country. Yeah.
Let me back again. I've seen that replication at 3 levels. Yeah, the 2Y fund, model, and at that level would mean therefore, if some organization, let's say Care Kenya or World Vision, were impressed with the model, the Y2Y fund model, and took it up to implement it in other area, and with the higher outreach, that replication and probably scale up at Y fund level. Up to that. Can I continue? Have I lost?
No, please continue.
So it's very clear. Now comes to the grantee level, where projects have been implemented in Tanzania and successful, they will be packaged, and others can also borrow from that. And I think it will all depend on if you go to the full replication partial, there is your organization or the BDS provider. Now, the version of providers that of offering support to several other younger, and yours. Now, bringing it all rather closer home. That's why I was saying, if, for instance, we have grantees who are implementing projects in a country, or within the same country, but different region, can still be repackaged, and others can borrow, replicate the same. And then, and again here, it will depend on the context, because I know, like in our case, and will help at this at some point. In our case, you'll find that you have the youth organization. It comes like the guarantee. In that youth-led organization, you have so many youth who are involved in different, enterprises. So the organization is that youth-led organization, which many youth, but the youth are involved in different enterprises. Those entrepreneurs. So now the level, and this is now the specific case I'm looking at, that the youth-led organization probably would from another area. The young entrepreneurs would still implement those ideas in their own context. I don't know, or rather, I'm making it clear.
Let's add in
yeah.
a bit here. So, just take on the West Africa perspective, for example.
Yeah.
You remember the first webinar when it was myself and Ari were giving examples, and I gave an example about this project where the grantee had come up with a project to create a business where they would package water and repair the boreholes in the village, and he had given an example, the sanitary pads that were made from banana leaves. These are the kind of projects that were funded by grantees. These are the BDS providers who are not only providing the full package, but even a business idea. Because if you're looking at a necessity entrepreneur, they may not even have a good business idea. So you may even find at the BDS level that ideas are being presented to young people as an option for them to take. So replication at that grantee level could be, I see Anne-Marie's project in East Africa and I say, yes, let's try to see if we can also make sanitary napkins out of banana leaves in Togo. And maybe she would see what happened in Sierra Leone and say, okay, let's try that out in Kenya, for example.
True.
So that's the kind of replication you might see at the grantee level. And the young entrepreneur level, so a grantee will help a young person set up a business. In the case of the water packaging company, the grantee helped a group of young people set up packaging, this company that was packaging water in good sanitary conditions and selling it to hotels and bars and that kind of supermarkets and what have you. And so this education and scale comes in at that level. It could be helping what they did is help the young entrepreneurs to talk to not hospitals but rather hotels in that region. So you might typically struggle a little bit to get access to people who are in certain circles. But what happened was that the young entrepreneurs were able to provide entrepreneurs were able to now start to sell in new markets. So they went from selling to just one hotel, they end up being able to sell to 4 hotels. So that's where scale comes in, increasing the size of the businesses. That might help clarify things a bit.
So may we listen to questions regarding to that, so that then we try and see whether we can give more examples. That you need, Tim?
Okay, says it's clear, so maybe we can move on.
Alfred.
Alfred's clear to me as well.
Okay. Then I think we can continue to the next slide.
It's on you. I've just joined in. Julius.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah. Thanks. I had failed to get the right timing for the webinar, but I've just joined in, and I would like to. I'm all up to pick up.
Yeah. Welcome.
Yes.
So, Alexia, we go to the next Okay, Tende.
Okay. Thing that George and I have covered in today's webinar is everything we've covered in today's webinar is available on the Youth to Youth Kit Youth Fund Toolkit website. Please perhaps put a link to it on the site. And what you have here, if you look at this screen, we just took some screenshots, but I wanted to just situate you in the toolkit. There's a lot of information over here, and sometimes one can get overwhelmed with everything that is here. So if at the top you have these 4 tabs about the toolkit, that gives you the background information, stuff we covered in the first webinar. There's the designer tab, and that is the tab Alessia showed you last week. And this week we're in the implementer tab. And so if you look, you see you have all the 5 phases from preparation, launch, selection, implementation, and replication and scale. In addition, you'll see there's 3 other headings, and these are cross-cutting themes: capacity building, model evaluation, and youth voice. So your combination to either look at content on the basis of just a phase, or you can look at it through a cutting theme and you want to see everything about monitoring and evaluation for all the phases. And that's where you go to the cross-cutting themes. Any of the 5 phases, in this case we have implementation, you have first of all the overview, what implementation about, and you have the checklist. You also have a series of resources. James, George, and myself and others in our team have put up documents that we've used that we found useful. So you can also see some resources that makes it easier for you to just have to adapt. Maybe if it's a selection criteria or the business checkup document, for example, it gives you a starting point with which you can then play around with and adapt. If you go to the next slide, and if you scroll down, you'll see there's then the list of key activities. So every point that is on a checklist can be expanded. And so here, one of the things on the checklist was to disperse the first tranche. That's something that's relevant for full replication only, but you have more additional information. Usually it's quite a bit more information, and sometimes it's just a short amount of additional text. And then go further down, if you scroll down below the key activities, I have a rough idea of some of the costs involved and the time planning issues. So you see on our website, we still say 12 months, but I actually need to update that because we no longer recommend 12 months because we have admitted that it just can't happen in 12 months. So this will be changed, but in any case, you'll see it's very similar to the slide we discussed today. It gives you an idea of what the phase involves, what are the key activities, and how do they fit on a time plan. Alessia, back to you.
Thank you, Tendai, for summarizing information available on the website. I put in the chat for everyone to refer to the Youth to Youth Toolkit website, so you can find the URL in the common chat. You will also find a visual button in the online course that you are taking that there is a reference to the Youth to Youth Fund Toolkit, so you will find also the URL within the course itself. Is there any final question, remark from the participant that has been described so far with the information provided? So remember that, I see in the chat we have Jane, she's confirming that she's clear. Just remember that you still have until tomorrow if you want to revise the material for week 3 of the course. This webinar session will also be, it is recorded, so it will be uploaded on the course platform as well, so you will have also the opportunity to revise this online session. You can use the course forum if you have any questions, remarks, comments, and you want still to discuss with both facilitators and other participants of the course. And just remember that next week on Monday you will have the 4th week and therefore the last week of this online course on the overall implementation of the Youth Fund, and there will be soon a notification regarding the next webinar, because the next webinar of the course will not be scheduled next Thursday, but the week after, due to some logistical arrangement that we had to take into account. But information will be published soon on the course forum, as every week I have done until now. Is there any other remark from George or Tendai? I think that even though it's a little bit early than 3:30, we can close the webinar.
No comments from me. I just wanted to thank everyone for being very interactive and engaged. It makes for a good session.
Yeah, likewise for me. I'm happy today. I think we are getting there. And the more questions you ask, the clarification we are able to provide. See, learning is a continuous process. We're also learning from you. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you both. Thank you, George. Thank you, Tendai. Is there any comment from you, Alfred, Dio, Jane, Joseph, Julius? Anything else to add?
Thank you. Only that today I have not managed time so well. But thank you for this very, very empowering module, practical course. So I get to thank you. But next time I promise to be on time and interact as much as I can.
Thank you, Julius.
I think I have also to thank the presenters. It was very well delivered and we understood it. I think the more we keep getting clear what really is, it's a huge learning experience for us. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Dio.
Thank you also. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It's been good learning. I learned too much. And I think I'm more better than before. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Then
that's all for today.
Yes. Okay, I would probably just close. Okay, obviously thanking, but maybe with a request, if you start to come ahead, that's fine. Maybe something that is looking at around some of the context factors that are essential for successful implementation. Here I'm looking beyond the fund, the environment wise is from a policy point, etc. I mean, so that we can test the success of the fund within some of the important context factors that are essential.
That's a question, and I think it's something that we're going to touch on in our final webinar. There's a look at success factors, push and pull factors, and drivers. So I won't preempt that, but we will be touching on that on the final webinar.
So if that's all, I am very glad to conclude this participatory session, and I look forward to continue the discussion with you on the online course platform. Have a nice rest of the day. Bye.
Bye.
and